Long before roads reached the mountain, every hunter who climbed Mount Makiling knew one rule: take only what you need. Never boast about what the mountain gives you. And if you ever see a woman walking alone among the trees, more beautiful than anyone in the lowland villages, you speak to her with respect, or you don't speak to her at all. For generations, the mountain had been generous to those who followed the rule and merciless to those who didn't. This is the story of the one man the mountain trusted enough to love, and the one mistake that made her stop trusting anyone at all. Gaspar was 23, the son of a rice farmer from the village at the base of Mount Makiling, when a poor harvest forced him to do what his father never had: hunt deep in the mountain's forest for meat, to feed his family through the dry season. He was careful. He'd grown up hearing the old warnings from his grandmother, who still left small offerings of rice and betel nut at the forest's edge before any of her sons went hunting. He took only what his family needed. He never boasted in the village about what he found. Perhaps that was why, on his third trip into the deeper woods, he found her instead of losing himself the way so many careless men before him had. She was sitting beside a clear mountain spring, humming something in a language that felt older than any he'd heard, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, wearing a simple woven dress the color of the forest itself. When she looked up and saw him, Gaspar expected fear or anger at the intrusion. Instead, she smiled, as if she'd been waiting. "You're the farmer's son," she said, "the one who takes only what he needs." Gaspar had never told anyone his name in these woods. He didn't ask how she knew it. Her name, she told him, was Maria, though the villages at the mountain's base had other names for her, spoken in hushed voices: Guardian, Diwata, the Lady of Makiling. She was not entirely human, and she made no attempt to pretend otherwise. She had watched over the mountain since before Gaspar's grandmother was born. Before her grandmother was born, she guided lost travelers back to safe paths. She blessed good hunters with easy game and punished greedy ones by leading them in circles until humility or hunger set in. Gaspar found himself returning to the spring again and again, not for meat, but for her, for conversations that stretched from afternoon into evening, for a companionship that made the walk up the mountain feel shorter each time and the walk back down feel unbearably long. She told him about the mountain's moods, how to read coming storms in the way the birds went quiet, which roots were medicine and which were poison. He told her about village life, harvest festivals, his mother's cooking, the small dramas of people who lived and died within sight of the same rice fields their grandparents had worked. Months passed this way. Gaspar told himself it couldn't continue, that a mortal man and a mountain spirit belonged to different worlds, that eventually the season would end and he'd return fully to his village life. He told himself that right up until the morning he realized he was in love with her, and that she loved him back. Maria asked only one thing of him, the day she admitted what they both already knew. "Whatever happens between us," she said, "you must never lead others to me for gain. Not for wealth, not for favor, not even to save yourself. The mountain trusts you because you've never asked it for more than you needed. Break that, and you break everything." Gaspar promised easily. It seemed like the easiest promise in the world to keep, until the fever came to his village that winter. It started with the youngest children, then spread to the elderly, then to anyone whose body was already weakened by a hard season. The village healer had no answers. The prayers at the small chapel went unanswered. Within 3 weeks, Gaspar had buried 2 younger cousins and watched his own mother grow pale and thin in her sickbed, coughing through nights that never seemed to end. Desperate and knowing Maria's knowledge of the mountain's medicine plants, Gaspar broke his promise. The only way he told himself didn't count. He didn't lead anyone to her physically. He simply told the village healer, in a moment of desperate honesty, that he knew someone in the mountain who might know a cure, a guardian spirit who understood plants no lowland healer had ever cataloged. He meant it as nothing more than a flicker of hope for a dying village. He didn't consider what it would mean once the healer told 2 other families, or what those families would do with that hope out of their own desperation. Maria found the first hunting party at the edge of her spring 3 days later. 6 men from Gaspar's village, armed not with the respectful offerings of traditional hunters, but with rope and the desperate, glassy-eyed determination of people who had run out of other options. They didn't come to ask for her help. They came to take her, believing that if her blessing could save one dying village, then forcing it might save all of them faster than waiting for her goodwill. She escaped them, of course. The mountain answered to her, not the other way around, and the forest closed around the hunting party in ways that sent them stumbling back to the village by nightfall, confused and empty-handed, muttering about paths that seemed to fold back on themselves. But she knew, standing alone at her spring afterward, exactly whose voice had planted the idea that she existed to be found and used rather than trusted and respected. When Gaspar climbed the mountain again that evening, desperate to explain, to apologize, to somehow undo 3 sentences spoken in a moment of grief-stricken hope, he found the spring empty for the first time in over a year. He called her name until his voice gave out. The forest gave him nothing back but silence and the growing dark. His mother recovered that spring, slowly, through nothing more than rest, time, and the kind of stubborn resilience old women in farming villages have always had. The fever passed from the village the way fevers eventually do, with or without miracle cures from mountain spirits. Gaspar climbed Mount Makiling every week for the rest of that year, then every month, then, as the seasons wore on, less and less, though he never fully stopped. He left offerings at the spring. He apologized a woman lying down when viewed from certain angles. Unlike many folklore spirits, she's remembered less as something to fear and more as a symbol of the mountain's abundance, and a warning about what happens when people take that abundance for granted. Versions of her story have been told for generations, often used to teach respect for nature long before the word conservation existed. To this day, some hikers on Mount Makiling still leave small offerings and speak quietly out of habit, old respect passed down, whether or not they fully believe the reason behind it anymore. Mount Makiling still stands today, and hikers who climb it still speak of a presence in the deeper forest, watchful, protective of those who show respect, and distant toward anyone who arrives expecting the mountain to simply give up its gifts on demand. Some say Maria Makiling still walks the mountain, still tests the character of anyone who wanders far enough into her woods. Whether that's true or simply a story that outlived the people who first told it, the lesson underneath has never really changed. Trust, once given, is easy to break and nearly impossible to fully rebuild. And the people we love deserve better than being treated as a last resort when we've run out of every other option. If you enjoyed the story, let us know in the comments. Do you think Gaspar deserved forgiveness? Or did he lose something he could never get back? And if you want more Filipino folklore brought to life, subscribe to Folklore of the Archipelago. A new legend awaits every week.